Hi, welcome to The Big Twist, a podcast where we talk to other creatives about the big plot twists in their creative lives. Today, we are here with our guest. We're so excited to have Minoti Vaishnav. Minoti is a writer of all things, TV writer, feature writer, what else?
Short fiction writer, former reality TV producer.
And you were also a pop star, we came to find out as we were doing some research on you.
Yes, I was not good. Please don't Google me. But yes, that's true. I was a former pop star.
I would love to get started with that plot twist. Tell us about that trajectory going from...
I actually moved to LA when I was 19 years old to become a pop star, as one does. You know, very normal thing to do.
That's amazing.
And yeah, you know, I came from a really musical family and I was really, you know, influenced by them. And so I was like, I want to do this for real. They were doing it as a hobby. And so I was like, I want to do this, but I, you know, didn't sing in Hindi. So there was no scope for me growing up in India to be a pop star there. And I was already really interested in writing as well, especially writing for film and TV. So my plan was, I'll move to LA and I'll study screenwriting and I'll be a pop star on the side. So that's what I did. So I had 3 indie albums out by the age of 25, which is when I quit being a pop star. But yeah, I mean, it was a hard profession. I mean, I would say music is a harder side of entertainment than film and TV is.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
what makes you say that?
Yeah, curious about that.
Well, first and foremost, diversity doesn't exist in the music industry the way it does now. It didn't exist back then. As somebody who is South Asian, I went into rooms and there was an exec at Sony Music who actually told me, we don't know how to market you. Because you sing like Avril Lavigne, Hilary Duff pop, and like we just don't have any Indian artists who do that. Like we just don't think that there's a market for you. You know, we can market a J-Lo or Rihanna. We can't market you. I mean, it was just so outright like we don't want Indian pop stars. And so this was pre-Instagram, like being able to really DIY your music career the way artists do now. And so for me, that was the kind of the beginning of the end, because I was like, oh, I'm going to do it myself. And I did. But, you know, at some point I realized, hey, maybe it's better to pursue your other passion, which is film and TV writing, which I came to the US to study and work in that business too. And I think I ultimately made the right choice. So, yeah.
That's great. Was that a tough pivot, or was it fairly like how? Yeah,
I think it wasn't tough simply because, you know, I had been watching stuff like Buffy and the X-Files growing up. I was like 11 years old watching stuff like that, and then I moved here to LA to do that. And so, you know, like, yes, I had this pop star career, and I think I always thought I could do both at the same time, which is ridiculous. You can't really be a pop star and do it right at the same time.
That is very ambitious. I think before we move on to writing, I am so curious about how you made some of these songs go viral, right? Like you were doing all of this yourself. Can you talk about that?
Yes, there's actually a weird connection to TV with how I made it go viral. So when I had a viral music video in like 2012, 13, around that time, and Tumblr was a huge thing, and everybody was watching the same 3 TV shows on Tumblr, which were Sherlock, Doctor Who, and Supernatural. And so I had this crazy idea that I would do a music video and have Easter eggs to those 3 shows in my music video, and then put it on Tumblr. And the objective was like, you had to find all the Easter eggs and you would win a prize. And so that's how the video went viral, because we shot really low budget a music video with all these Easter eggs from these 3 shows, which I also watched and was a fan of. And that's how it went viral, because everybody was trying to find the Easter eggs. So even back then, even when I was doing music, there was such a deep connection to TV, even at that time, which I guess I'm only realizing right now. But that is how I went viral. I just
love that.
Yeah.
That was so smart.
Yeah. I wonder which fandom had the most views. Like, was it Doctor Who?
It was definitely Supernatural. I mean, Supernatural fans they're so passionate, and it was definitely Supernatural. Those, you know, a lot of those fan accounts had thousands and thousands of followers, and so them reblogging your stuff, I mean, that's how it goes viral. And this was, you know, before anyone was using Twitter and Instagram. It was Tumblr, right? So
Wow.
you had to make do with what you were given, which at the time Tumblr worked great for me.
So let's pivot to the writing part of it. How did you get started?
So when I was like wrapping up my music career and I had just graduated from college, and at that point I was like, I'm pretty sure I know that I want to be I want to do more TV and film stuff, right? And so I was like, how do I get a job there? So I reached out to everybody I knew and I was like, please get me in the door. I will be a janitor at a production. Like, I don't care. Like, get me in, right? And it was actually Sabrina Almeida who got me my first TV job.
We interviewed
Yeah.
Sabrina.
Yeah.
Great.
She was at the time an associate producer on a reality TV show called Hunting Hitler. Very, very popular show. Yes. It was a very popular show, hunting Nazis. And
Whoa.
yeah, and it was in its third season. It was airing in 67 countries.
When was this?
History Channel show. This
what year?
was 2017. And, you know, I had worked a
Okay.
little bit in like the documentary film side at the International Documentary Association, but I had never like worked as a writer or a producer. You know, I wanted that. And so Sabrina, left her job as associate producer on Hunting Hitler to go and be a staff writer on SEAL Team. And when she left, I took her spot. So she recommended me for her job.
Wow.
And so that was my first TV show. And I have to say, as a first TV show as an associate producer, that was a crazy one to be on. But I did learn a lot. The showrunner that I worked with in season 3 let me do everything. So I got to write outlines. I got to be shadowing post. I got to break episodes. I got to do a lot of research, looked at a lot of World War II FBI files. I mean, the whole show was built off the premise that every single intelligence agency in the world, even though Hitler was dead, thought he was alive and had all these investigations on that.
Wow.
Wow.
And
No idea.
that's what the show is built on. And it was
Yeah.
like, was that true? And like, who did some people escape to Argentina, which is also part of it. It is true. But that's
a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other
That's a whole
podcast.
Yeah,
But
and,
anyway,
I'm curious also, like, how did you had never done this job before, right? So how did you convince them, hey, I have the skill set to do this
I was
job?
curious about that.
That's a very good question. And to be honest, the first week or two, I don't feel like I had the skill set. I do pick up things very easily, though. I had been an event producer at the International Documentary Association, so I had a little bit of like being thrown into something and just dealing with things as they come. But I do think this was definitely a huge learning curve for me. And you know, first 2 weeks I was just like observing how do I do things. And, you know, I know that there was a producer on that show who didn't like me and didn't want me to be there because they didn't think I could do the job. And that's, you know, part of what fueled me to do a better job. Because I was like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. And by the end of it, you know, that producer was my friend. And, you know, because I'd done a good job. And the company that produced the show kept me on for another 3 years as a development producer. So, you know, it's sort of like that, well, you don't have to know how to do everything all the time, but if you think you can do it, you think you can learn, then stick with it and you will, you know, so that's
you can figure it out. Yeah, that's been one of the prevalent themes of this podcast. A lot of people talk about that. Just dive in before you're 100% ready and you can learn on the job.
And I love that we're hearing that so much from how many women we interview, because that's such a like statistical thing of that women are less likely to throw their name into the hat if they don't feel 100% qualified, whereas men will throw their name in the hat if they even think they're like 40%. Or I mean, I'm throwing out these percentages; they're not accurate, but if we Google it, we will find that this is a thing. And yeah, so I love hearing this over and over again from the women we're interviewing.
Yeah.
You got that chutzpah. I love it.
I'm curious too about the subject matter. So did you go to different shows or did you stay with this one show focused on
I went to different shows after that. So the job on this particular show was only 2 months, honestly, 2 or 3 months. And then they moved me into development after that. And so when I was in development, my area of expertise was actually investigative shows. And a lot of things fell under that umbrella. So it was either FBI declassified files. We did a lot of those. I talked to a lot of CIA and FBI, former CIA, FBI agents, a lot of NYPD detectives. We did a lot of serial killer true crime shows, but then we also did these historical FBI shows. So there was a show on D.B. Cooper. There was a show on, Black Dahlia, all these unsolved mysteries. So I did a lot of those. And then we also did archaeological shows, which also fall under the investigative umbrella, because you're, investigating history and like mysteries of history. And so it's a lot of that. And it was definitely a very interesting job. I had to interview some very colorful people. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot just about random things, and then also about producing TV and how television is made.
I'm so curious about any random facts that still stick with you that you're like, oh, I'm so shocked about this one archaeological finding.
Listen, I'm not saying aliens are real. Obama just said it though.
This keeps coming.
I know. Obama did just say it.
I talked to the guy from the Pentagon there was a file released in 2017 from the Pentagon that had all these UFO things in it, and then there was a guy that we interviewed. I can't remember his full name. His first name is Luis, but he talked very candidly about everything that they had discovered about UFOs, and this was in 2018. So he's been out there saying all this, and now it's like all these other files are being declassified, and he's like, well, I've been saying this for years. So it's kind of like, I went into like researching all these UFO shows, being a complete non-believer and being like, whatever. And then just after interviewing a bunch of people, reading all those files, I'm like, well, maybe. So that's my most interesting thing that I've discovered, reading all these declassified files and interviewing people.
I've never talked about this on the podcast, but as a kid, I gravitated to UFO books, and I just started reading about it, and it was the same sort of thing. I went through this when I was like 13 years old, like, oh my gosh, this could be real. Are we alone? Are we not alone? And who knows what it actually is, but I think there's something to be said about, is this human technology or is this alien technology, or like, what is this phenomenon that keeps popping up all over the world?
And do people want to hear it? I feel like no one, like, you've got, this guy's been out talking about this since 2018. Like, why aren't we losing our minds over this?
I know.
I think people just write it off as like, it's some other country's technology. But actually, like, when you're producing shows that are focused on this, they also have you look at declassified files from other countries. So like MI5 files, I've read a lot of those, all the declassified ones at least. And, files from Sri Lanka, Canada, they all have them. They all have UFO files. It's really strange. It's like they all have their own version of the X-Files. And, to me,
this
like,
is wild.
Yeah, I like all the stuff that I've read in those files. It actually really inspires me to write my pilots and stuff, because there's just so much in there.
Like, as a sci-fi buff, like, I would be fascinated by that stuff, and like maybe the commonalities, right? It's like, do they all talk about the fact that they can go underwater and back up in the air and then back underwater and then, go at like sound speeds in no time, like all of those things.
Yeah, they
I'm
do.
Sure you've read about. That's insane.
Is this part of what you write about? Like, do you?
Yeah, I am a science fiction writer and a mystery writer. So like, especially the mystery thriller aspect of it, I think I can do that in any genre. So I always say it's like, I'm the one that you call when you have to find the clues in a story. Because I like writing mysteries and detective stuff and anything that you have to solve. And so, a lot of my writing is inspired by like the mysteries that I looked up in declassified files for my job as a producer. And so, yeah, I definitely think a lot of what I write is inspired by that.
It's such a great skill set to have, to be able to deeply research a subject and go through classified documents or go through like very dense documents and be able to condense it in a way that is, where you can get bullet points out of it.
Yeah, and it's also a lot of what I was doing is finding the story in the document, right? Like, so it's like, okay, you can go to the FBI vault, anyone can do this, and look up a declassified file, but the skill of actually finding, where's the TV show in that? What's the story? Who are we interviewing? What are we actually seeing on camera? What's the mystery we're trying to solve? I mean, those are the things that I would do. Find the idea, find the story. What are we writing about? What are we actually, showing the world? What are we trying to achieve here? And so I think that's the skill set, because I think anybody can read an FBI file, but then finding like, how do we turn this into a TV show? That's the tough part.
It's so interesting that you were able to do that as a producer, that you got a producing job that was what you were already obviously interested in, and you were able to hone these skills and work on these things and then sort of bring that into your TV writing. And like, so where did you go from, I guess you were already sort of talking about it, but where did you go from the like producing and doing all this to writing on TV? Like, what TV shows did you bring this to?
Yeah. So one of the things with producing all of this kind of stuff was, it was super fun, but it was still not quite what I wanted to do because it was in unscripted. So, I didn't really want to be in reality TV. It was something that I was just thrown into, right? With my first job, I always wanted to be a writer on the scripted side of things. And it was incredibly hard to make that pivot, because once you're in reality, you get pigeonholed. And you're just like, oh, you're a reality TV producer, even though you have so much experience. I would say I learned so much more in reality than I actually did in writers' rooms. And I know a lot of showrunners hate hearing that because they want to look down on reality TV. But the truth of the matter is, it is much harder to be a reality TV producer than to be a staff writer.
Could you talk about that a little?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So curious. It's a really good take.
It's when you are a producer in reality, especially in development, you are doing 50 different jobs. So here's what I was doing as a producer. Besides looking for stories in declassified files, I was also writing up treatments. I was also casting these shows. So that's where all the interviewing of all these people come. We were looking for somebody who's an ex-CIA agent who wants to host a reality TV show. It's a narrow requirement, and somehow you have to meet it, right?
Wow, yeah.
I worked on a show called Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch, which started out as like, find some ranch that's not Skinwalker Ranch where weird stuff happens in America. Okay, there's only one other ranch. I found them.
How did you even find them? That's not easy to find.
A lot of internet research. Also, you have to reach, everything's not online. So you find like a sliver of something, and then you find some email address and you reach out to them and you say, I want more information. Can you do, at that time we didn't have Zoom. This was 2018. We were doing Skype. And so it was like, can you Skype with me? And then just talking to a lot of people. And so I ended up finding that place. I ended up finding the person who owns that place, casting those people, casting like, what's the story in this place? How do we spin the story? I mean, you're doing everything. And then you're also overseeing posts. So you're overseeing all the sizzle edits and posts so that we can have a good sizzle to actually sell it to Discovery. Was the channel that picked that particular show up. So you're doing everything. You're doing everything from the creative to like the production side to the sales side. And
holy cow,
and then to come into the scripted part of the industry and be like, well, you're a staff writer and you should be grateful that you're just at this level. It's kind of like, sure, except like, I have all this experience which for some reason doesn't count on this side of things, which is incredibly bizarre to me. So when I was, to answer your question the long way around, when I was in reality TV, I knew that I couldn't just submit samples to managers and be like, and then my managers would get me a job. Like, that's just not how it works, even with my experience. So I was just doing everything, throwing spaghetti at the wall. I went and got a creative writing master's degree from Oxford. So I was living in England half the time and in LA half the time.
Wow.
And
wait, were you working at the same time? How is that possible?
I was working. My job allowed me to take enough leave that I could do it. It was unpaid leave. I was not paid for that leave, but that's fine. Like, I was willing to do that. And so I did that, met a lot of great people. And then I just kept applying to contests and fellowships. I got my first manager off of a contest I won. And then,
which contest was it?
So it doesn't exist anymore, but it was the New York TV Festival and JHRTS. They had partnered to do a screenwriting competition. And then I went to New York. I met with 12 agents and managers, and I signed with one of them. And JHRTS still has their competition, but it's no longer with the New York TV Festival. And I do feel like that was a big catalyst in my career. And the pilot that I won that contest with was also called Catalyst. So that's funny.
Ironic.
Yeah, that's how I got my first manager. And then I just kept applying to fellowships. And eventually I got into the Paramount Writers Mentoring Program. And that's what got me my first staff writer job on The Equalizer. So I was able to transition from reality TV to scripted, but I had to do it the way everybody would do it. I had to do it through fellowships. I had to do it through contests, because in spite of all this great producing experience, I mean, I worked on 17 shows that got produced as a reality TV producer.
Wow.
None of it counts in the scripted world, which is insane.
Amazing.
So yeah.
That's so cool. So the Paramount Fellowship led to The Equalizer. And then where did you go? How long were you on The Equalizer?
I was only on The Equalizer for 1 season.
Okay.
We were pandemic year, 2020. Nobody knew what to do. It was the first Zoom room for everybody. Nobody got to go to set. Nobody got to do anything. And, the second season, the lowest level writer in the room was producer level. So there was no room for me. They didn't want to pay for me, ultimately. I think when you're a diversity hire, when you get into a Paramount program or any program, and you get hired on a show, there are some shows that will take you because you're quote unquote free, right? And so
will you explain that too?
Yeah,
It's because the studio is paying for you, right? So
Correct.
Paramount is covering your staff writer fee.
Correct.
Will you explain how that works a little bit
So
more?
when you get into one of these programs, they will try to staff you on a show, but this basically, the writer budget comes from the show, right? The studio gives the show a budget, and they tell the showrunner, here's your writer's room budget, and then the showrunner has to look at the budget and hire writers from within that budget.
Okay.
A program writer is outside of that budget. So they don't have to pay for that writer. They're already paid for by the studio.
I never knew that.
Yes. So it's basically like a way for a show to get a writer outside of their budget. So it's like an extra voice in the room and, just extra help for them that they don't have to pay for. However, in your second year, the Paramount Fellowship has changed over time. But when I did it, they were not paying for your second year. And I think now they do. But if you're not paid for in your second year, the show, 50% of the time, the show will dump their writer because they don't want to pay for you. And I think especially that 2020, 2021, they were dumping a lot of their fellowship writers because, the budgets were slashed, pandemic had happened.
It was also muddled.
Everything was muddled. So, yeah, I mean, that is it. It's honestly luck sometimes where you get staffed. Some people were staffed on shows that, you were like, no, we care about this person's career, we want to keep them. And some people were staffed on shows where it was like, look, we just don't have the money, we're just going to go with upper level writers only. And it just depends. It's all your luck, honestly.
That is wild. Is that how they all work? Are all the fellowships that way? Do they all?
Yes.
Well, there
How
are
was I
some
not aware of
fellowships
it?
that don't staff you. So, for example, I got the NHMC fellowship, and that is you get the mentorship aspect,
Right.
but you're not guaranteed staffing on a show.
Right. It's
like
the
with
big
the
ones,
Disney.
right? Is it like the Disney,
Disney,
Fox,
Paramount.
the big major
NBC,
ones?
NBC.
launch, yes.
Mhm.
Okay. That is wild that I never knew that.
Yeah, and
Huh.
to be very honest, it's become impossible now, even if you are in those fellowships. In the last few years, CBS and NBC have not staffed any of their fellows. So you can imagine showrunners are getting a free writer and they're still not taking them.
Mhm.
And that is where our industry is at now, but that's another story.
Yeah, that is. I mean, we do want to talk about that.
I had a friend that was in the Disney fellowship, and she didn't staff. And it was devastating for her. And then she finally had to come to terms with the fact that it was not her. It was just these writers' rooms can be so insular, right? And I think showrunners get used to working with people that they've worked with for years. That to bring a fresh new voice into the room can be very disruptive for them, or from their perspective, it can be
a
very
risk.
It can be a huge risk because they've already built this dynamic with this group of people over many years that I think sometimes they have this perception of, oh, I can't risk just bringing a brand new person in and they're going to disrupt the dynamic. Maybe we can dive a little bit into that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely not your friend, right? Because she beat out 2,000 people to get into the Disney Fellowship. I mean, the
An
hoops that
accomplishment
we,
right there.
yeah, the hoops that we have to jump through sometimes as writers of color is just insane. Like, first you got to beat out 2,000 people to get into this fellowship. And then from that fellowship, you can maybe staff on a show, right? And when you staff on a show out of the fellowship, you're also, again, beating out 500 other staff writer applicants, right? And maybe you have a leg up because you are paid for by the studio. But if you look at it now, they're not taking the writers that are paid for the studio. They're taking other people, right? They're not taking any staff writers. So to get staff on a show, you really have to beat out thousands and thousands of people. And to get into any fellowship, you have to be, I mean, I've done a lot of fellowships, and you have to beat out 1,000 people at least every time you get into one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely not you, right? Like, you're doing that. You're getting into these fellowships, but then it's like the game is kind of rigged. So it's like, how do you figure out a way to play the game and get ahead in your own way in this system, right? I think that's what we're all trying to figure out right now.
Oftentimes how you get in and stay in is you have to have such a unique perspective that fits the show so well, right? It's like, okay, they're looking for a Japanese American writer, and they need to have gone through a divorce and also had 2 kids, because we want them to encompass this life experience. And it's like, oh, I happen to have that. Please pick me.
100%. I mean, somebody needs to write a show about a former pop star who becomes a detective, because like that's my show.
Your journey is amazing. You mentioned having gotten into a lot of fellowships, and I'd love to hear about that, because that's something we had talked about when we were all at a screening recently, and I first met you, which was lovely and wonderful. You had been mentioning these fellowships, and I was like, my goodness, you've gotten into a lot. Can you tell us about some of those and
yeah, sure,
how that process went?
Before I was staffed, I actually applied to everything, right? Because I was trying to get out of reality and into scripted. And I remember I was always a bridesmaid, never the bride. So I was finalist in everything. I was a finalist in the Paramount CBS program before I got in. I was a finalist in the NBC one, Warner Brothers. Disney was the only one that I did not make the finals for, which is ironic because I ended up working on True Lies later on, which is a Disney show. But anyway, I was a finalist in the Cape Fellowship, every single fellowship, and I could not get in. And it was just like, okay, whatever, it's not for me. And then last year, or the year before last, actually, I decided to apply for fellowships again, because our industry is dying for lower level writers, and now we all have to do something else, right? And so I was like, well, here's another way to try to break in. Let me just apply to all those fellowships again, because they are now open to writers who have already staffed. A lot of those fellowships recognize that it is harder than it has ever been. You have people like Ava DuVernay saying that it is harder than it has been in the last 30 years, and it's even hard for her to get something made. So if she's saying that, what are the rest of us doing? And so I decided, okay, since these fellowships are open to writers who've already staffed, let me try again. And this time I got into all of them. So not the big network. Those are not open to writers who have already staffed. But I did get into the Cape Fellowship, which is for Asian American writers specifically. And
it's okay that you had been staffed twice. That was fine with them.
Yes, they took writers up to story editor level.
Oh, great.
I was the writer in that fellowship that had the most experience. But there was another writer with me in the fellowship who had staffed. There was another writer who had sold something. So they had opened it up to, writers who had already done something before, which was helpful. So I did that fellowship. I got into the Indian Film Festival of LA's Launchpad program. So that was for, you did a pitch, a 5-minute pitch of your project, and you were up for $10,000. I did not win that because I was the only TV project at a film festival. But it was still a great experience. And I did Ride Back Rise with Angela and The Circle. And then the Orchard Project Episodic Lab, which is still going on. And then I got into another fellowship at the end of last year, which I cannot talk about yet because the announcement hasn't come out. But that's a year-long fellowship that I'm doing this year. And then I'm also doing another fellowship with the Orchard Project for a feature script. So there's a lot of these fellowships. And the reason I recommend doing this is you get for the mentorship. You get a mentor in each of these fellowships. My Cape mentor is amazing. Wow. She was an EP on Westworld, and she ran the last season of Person of Interest. So it's like, that's the caliber of mentors you're getting. And she's, such a champion of my writing. My IFLA mentor was Roshan Sethi. He did A Nice Indian Boy, the movie, and he created the Fox show, The Resident. So you're getting really good mentors out of these fellowships, and then you're meeting really cool people in the fellowships as well. So, it's at this downtime in our business, I think it's really great to just do these programs and meet new people and get new mentors and get your writing read, right? Again, I had to beat out 1,000 people every time to just get in, but it's like, because my writing got read, and it's so difficult to get read now that I feel like fellowships are a great way to just get your writing read and have champions for you. So
I love this. And community. You're building community. And the tenacity you have to just keep going after all of this is so impressive.
Yeah. And I would add to that you run into the same group of people, right? And then you start to build lasting relationships. For example, Jessica Scherzer, who staffed me the first time I was staffed, is the head of writing for Ride Back Rise, which we did together. So then I reconnected with her in that program. It's one of those things where you run into the same folks, right? And yeah, all of a sudden you're like, I'm a part of a community. I'm not writing alone in a dark room.
Yeah, there's that.
There's a lot of it. And then you get to see that there's a lot of us going through the same struggles, right? That a lot of us have staffed and then not worked for a while and then staffed again, and then, or maybe pivoted to features or micro dramas. You get to see other people's plot twists as well through that. I'm so curious about the sample that got you into 5 different fellowships. Can you talk about that?
they were all different samples.
Ooh.
Wow.
And I think that's another thing that every writer needs to know. You better be writing, because yes, you can have one great sample, but once the entire town has read it, they're going to be like, oh, we've heard of this. We've read of this. What else you have, right? And everything that I have ever gotten has been from a different sample. I staffed on The Equalizer with a different sample than the sample I staffed on True Lies with. Completely different samples, right? Every fellowship that I've done, completely different samples. I think the only crossover was Paramount and The Orchard Project had the same sample, but everything other than, and there was a 5-year gap between those 2 fellowships, and yet they had the same.
Wow.
But every other fellowship, completely different sample. All of them were investigative, but very different in tone, very different genres in that sense. So it was like historical investigative, sci-fi investigative, legal investigative, all different. But so still like my brand, my voice, but very, very different samples. So every fellowship, every staff writing job that I've gotten, different sample.
I have a crazy question.
I'm so impressed by that.
I know. That's so impressive. Well, it's so impressive. And it made me go, because I just think about the breadth of your, I'm trying not to say breath. The D, there's a D in it. Breadth of.
The breadth of your work.
I guess that's
right?
how you say it, right? The breadth of your work.
That's how you say it.
I'm super self-conscious today. I don't know what's happening. I'm really self-conscious.
I'm pretty
today.
sure that's how you said it. I'm sure you're saying
the
it.
breadth. Yeah, you're right.
The breadth of your work.
Thank you.
I was so impressed by you when I first met you, or one of the first interactions I had with you, where you told me that you basically had a writing sample for every single genre. Can I just say that it's beyond impressive. And I think that more people need to know that you do have to have a very specific sample for the specific show that you're going after, because a lot of times as a lower level writer, which I hate that term, by the way, we should call it something else.
Yeah.
But this is an industry term.
You want to come up with a word?
As a writer that is getting started working in TV, you're supposed to have the perfect sample for the show, right? So let's just talk about that. How long did it take you to have a writing sample for every genre, basically?
It's interesting because I didn't look at it like that. You're absolutely right, but I didn't look at it like that. What I was doing was like, when I was finding funny stories in declassified files, I was like, this could, we're not going to use it. It's for reality TV, that's impossible to use it, but I can use it for a pilot. And so I was just finding stories I was interested in and writing them. But there was a certain point where I started realizing, oh, this is great for a sci-fi show, but this other one is great for a historical show, and this other one is great for a spy show. And so I think it happened kind of organically almost at first. And then at a certain point, I did start to think of, well, what do I not have, right? Okay, so I don't have a half-hour comedy because I'm not a comedy writer, but I'm going to write one anyway. So last year, I wrote a half-hour comedy sample that is still in the investigative space. And so it's sort of like,
that's the spine, the investigative.
Yes, because that's my brand. And I think that's important. You do have to have a brand as a writer. You can't just be like, I can do everything. But you can do every genre within your brand. And it's like if your brand is investigative because that's what you've been doing and that's what you are an expert in, you can do that in so many different genres, right? So it's like I can go out for staffing on a historical investigative show, but I can go out for staffing on Pluribus because I have a sci-fi thing, and even something like The Pit. If you have a medical investigative show, which I wrote on a medical scripted podcast, I mean, that's another avenue, right? So it's like you could do a procedural with an investigative sample too, but you have to have it within that.
High potential, isn't that one?
Yeah, high potential of a sample for that.
One.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious about what are your favorite investigative shows? This
is such an awful question because there's so many, right? So here's the thing. I love genre. I love everything that's like supernatural. So I think like Supernatural is one of my all-time favorite shows. But like thinking about what's on the air now, I do love The Pit. It's not really an investigative show, but it kind of is. If you like break it down, it's like they're trying to save this person's life by solving some kind of medical mystery every week. And there's like several of those. I loved Pluribus. I loved Paradise. I'm excited for the second season of that.
Yes, he's on a horse now. I saw a billboard. I'm not going to spoil anything about Paradise. I'm just saying.
That's a tagline under the podcast.
Yeah.
He's
the
on
lead
a horse
actor.
now.
What's his name?
Sterling K. Brown?
Sterling K. Brown is on a horse on a billboard. Okay. Paradise season 2.
That's amazing. I have not seen that billboard, but I did love season 1. So I'm excited about season 2 for sure. And yeah, I mean, I just think my favorite like investigative show though of all time, like actually mystery procedural, was Veronica Mars. I thought season 1 was so good of that show, and it's like I aspire to make that someday. But yeah, I mean, again, look at how different all these genres are, right? Veronica Mars is a high school mystery. Pluribus is like super sci-fi, so it's like you have I like everything investigative, no matter what genre it is.
I am curious about what you're writing now and how your past has shaped what you're working on now. Because, for example, for me, I've talked about this on the podcast before. It's like I'm an immigrant. I sometimes make my characters also be immigrants and talk about that experience through my work. Do you have pop star lead characters? Like, what are some personal facets or some personal things that you've brought into your writing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this year I am focusing on writing features because I have written so many pilots. And so for me, I'm just like, I've been there, done that. I have all this portfolio already. I mean, I don't have that many features. And so I'm writing features more. There's like 4 that I'm working on simultaneously because that's just how I do it. But they all have something. They're all vastly different from each other. They all have something to do with my experience, but it's not as clear-cut as, there is a pop star character. It's a little more abstract. So, for example, one of the movies, it's a horror movie, how it feels to be a woman in society. Human beings are the real monsters. And how, women are treated in this society is monstrous. And so it's like, it's, although there is like a creature and all these, horror elements in it, it really is showing that like random creatures in the woods are not the problem. We're the problem. And so, yeah, like that's sort of the stuff I'm writing about, stuff that it's like I have experienced and resonated with, but then that everybody will also experience and resonate with on a very deep level. I think that's really what I'm focusing on, and then, focusing on like stories of family and how dysfunctional families interact with each other under circumstances that include, death and funerals and very dark topics. But that one's a dark comedy. And so it's sort of just like flipping the genre on its head. So what I'm doing now is basically trying new things, right? Trying new things with my writing, yes, based on things I know, but also based on, what do I want to watch? What do I want to like connect with? And what's unique, right, about this? Like, what have we not seen before? And I'm trying to like explore those sort of things with these, concepts that everybody will identify with.
That's interesting because the two examples you just gave of what you're working on, they're not really in that investigative realm. Or is there still an element of that to them?
The horror one, definitely.
Okay.
You're right about the dark comedy. There is no investigative. There is one investigative element in it because I couldn't help having one investigative or like one mystery in it that has to be solved. But mostly, yeah, you're right.
That's interesting.
That is me trying something different.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying that?
Yeah, that's actually the project I'm going to be working on in the new screenwriting lab that I'm in this year. And part of what I'm doing is also trying to turn that particular project into a play because that's one thing I have not done. I have not done theater. I've done short stories, podcasts, features, TV, but not done theater. So I was like, this is my opportunity to turn that feature into play and kind of have both and see what happens. So, yeah.
We love to ask everyone to tell us a little story that just gives us some insight into your character. It tells us a little bit about who you are.
I think Angela mentioned that I was very tenacious earlier, and that is true. So after I was done on The Equalizer, I was like, all right, well, next job, right? I'll just go up for other things. We'll see what happens. And of course, it's not that easy to get your next staff writing job or story editor job. And so I was going out for jobs, and then I thought to myself, all right, let me try and get an agent during this time. I didn't have an agent. Let me go and try to do that. So I managed to reach on my own 2 coordinators at 2 different agencies who read my work and loved it and passed it up to their bosses. And their bosses just came back with, she's a one and done. She's been on The Equalizer. She's never going to staff again. We like her writing, but we're not going to sign somebody who we don't think is ever going to work again in this town.
That is horrible. They told you that's what they said?
They told their coordinators that, and then the coordinators told me.
My gosh.
And then, it was just like, they just don't think you're ever going to staff again. And, they're suggesting that you go backwards and be a writer's assistant, which, by the way, I've never been a writer's assistant. I came to this business as a reality TV producer. But anyway, they were like, go and be a writer's assistant. Maybe like that, you will move up from there. And I was just like, no, screw you. Like, they're wrong. Like, that was my attitude, was like, that is the wrong. They're completely wrong about me. And I'm going to show them that they're wrong about me. And, I'm not a one and done. I'm going to keep working in this business. And
love this confidence.
Yeah. Yep. And I was just like, they're dumb. Like, I literally was just like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I did prove them wrong, right? I got staffed on True Lies. And when I got staffed on True Lies, I went back to those agencies and be like, I'm staffed on True Lies. I will never sign with you. Like, I will not be signing with you, because suddenly once you're staffed, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we should talk. And it's like, no, I won't be doing that. We will not be having a conversation.
I love that you did that.
Yeah, you didn't believe in me when I needed you to believe in me. You're just believing in me when it's convenient for you to believe in me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I understand it's like, okay, agents are looking at who they can make money off of, but like, it should also be, hey, we think this person's talented and they're going to be going somewhere, maybe not now, but in the future. And that's why we want to work with them, right? Mm-hmm. And the attitude was just like, you're nobody, right? We're just not even going to give you the time of day. And my response to that attitude was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what defines me. It's I'm going to prove you wrong. I am very tenacious. I do not give up. I will be doing this till I'm 80. You know what I mean? Like, I will be fighting to do this.
And it almost sounds like you're a little fueled almost if someone says you can't do something. You're like, no, yeah, I can.
Yeah, yes, I can. Exactly. I'm like, you're just making it like easier for me to do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being a writer. You can be 80 and do this. John Irving talked about that in a recent interview, how it's like you have no excuse. You have pen and paper.
Yeah, as long as you have your mind, you can do it. You know, and
mm-hmm.
that's my philosophy.
That's a great story to tell us who you are.
And how did you land on True Lies?
So, I think we talked a lot about community as well here. And I think that's so important when you're trying to staff on shows or trying to just do anything in this business. It is other writers who help you and other people who help you. True Lies was like a perfect storm of greatness because 5 people recommended me for that show.
Whoa.
And it was everybody at all levels. It was other showrunners. It was an exec at Fox who had been a mentor of mine previously when I was in the JHRTS competition. And she was a Fox exec and she just saw my name and she was like, oh, I know her, like move her forward. obviously CBS execs, because I had done the CBS program. So they were like, yes, we know her. So Matt Nix, our showrunner on True Lies, was getting recommendations from me from the network, the studio, from other writers he knew, from his own assistant. Like, everybody was like, you have to read this girl.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then he read my script and he was like, oh, her script's kind of like the show. Let me meet with her. And that is how I got that job. 5 people had to recommend me for me to get that job. But that's how I did it.
Wow.
And what was that experience like? Can you tell us about the room?
True Lies was amazing. We had a really great writer's room. We are all still friends. We all still text each other, you know, like we're also really close. It's been like 2 or 3 years since we've worked in that room, but we're still really close. And Matt was a great showrunner. He made sure that all of his writers learned everything. I feel like I went through a little bit of a showrunner training program on True Lies, because he made sure his writers were in every single network and studio notes call, not just for their script, for everybody's script.
Whoa.
So we had the option. It was not like you had to do it, but he's like, you can hop into the Zoom, you know, and just listen to the network notes and everything. And that's so helpful. Like, listening to the notes on every episode is so helpful. He also had us sit in on every production meeting for every episode if we wanted to. So, of course, for our episode, we had to do that. But, like, you know, I could sit in on a props meeting for episode 4, and that was totally fine. So it was like doing that, you kind of learned everything, right? We got to go to set. We got to be in post-production. Again, for every single episode, we got to go to the post-production mixes and give notes.
That is really rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
He really made sure everybody was learning everything, and this is very rare. Most showrunners will not let all levels of writers do all of this, but I think Matt's philosophy was like, this is what you're here for, right? You're here to learn how to make TV. Eventually, you're going to go off and make your own show, so you better learn it now. So
you got to go to set for your episode, or
it was a different episode that I went to set for, which is weird.
That's also rare. Yeah.
Yeah. I did get to do a lot of the production stuff for my episode. So all the casting and the props meetings, costume meetings, I did all of that for my episode and the episode I went to set for. So it was sort of both. But yeah, it was really helpful. I was on set with another producer level writer. And that was also very helpful to have somebody who was mid-level there, kind of like, you know, learning from that person as well. And yeah, I mean, it was just a great experience overall.
Can you talk to us about the experience of a writer on set? Because some people might not be familiar with what are you supposed to be doing as a writer and what are you not supposed to be doing?
Excellent question. I was really lucky before I went to set, because I got to go to a TV Academy panel with Margaret McIntyre and Julie Plack, where they talked about being a writer on set and what to do and what not to do. So I got that, and I'd also read Adele Lim's like Bible on what to do when you go to set. It's online. If anyone wants to check it out, it is great. It is like really everything you need to know about going to set as a writer. So I did all that prep work, and thank God I did, because, you know, when I went to set, the thing that you should do is, if you see something in a scene that isn't quite working, or you've noticed something, don't go tell the director. But if there's another producer on set, you can tell the other producer, and the producer will tell the director. And if there isn't another producer, you can tell the director, and then the director will tell the actor. You should never go and tell the actor directly, by the way, because that's the director's job.
And that's also DGA rules, right?
Yes, that's DGA rules. Other rules include don't move your own chair, which is a weird thing, but that's also a union thing. Like, there are people to do that. Yeah. But the main thing is, you know, if someone comes up to you with a problem on set, find a higher up if you can. Like, that's like a big thing. If you can't find a higher up, call your showrunner. This happened to me on set. So, and look, it happened to me for a very specific reason. Part of our show was, our showrunner was also very encouraging of everybody being friends with each other. And so, like, you know, he had a party at his house where the actors and writers met each other, and we all got along, and then we started following each other online. And so, you know, some of the actors were following me on Instagram and whatever. We were friendly. So when I got to set, one of the actors came up to me, and she was like, "Am I getting fired?" And it was because she had gotten the script for the next episode, and in the next episode she says she's leaving to go to Colombia. And so she was like, am I being written out of the show? Now, here's the thing.
Oh.
When I left to go to Atlanta for set, that was not part of the story of the next episode. And I had worked on the next episode a little bit with that writer. So I was like, that was just not in there. So it had gotten added while I was on the plane or something. I don't know. So I didn't know the answer. I was like 99% sure she was not getting fired because we all like her. But I was like, I can't be like, oh, you're definitely fine, right? Because what if something happened while I wasn't there?
Yeah, you have to be like, let me get back
and
to
I
you.
understand why she came up to me. She knew me from Instagram and woman of color to woman of color. So she didn't go to the other producer of set. She went to me.
Wow.
I kind of get why she did that. But I, as the staff writer, could not be like, you're good, you're fine, like, you're great. Like, I had to sort of be like, I'm pretty sure fine. Let me talk to Matt. Like, let me just ask them what's going on, right? And she was like, no, I don't want to disturb him. Like, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. But I was sort of like, no, that's my job. I have to go and ask the showrunner, let me talk to John, the producer, and set.
Wow.
So first thing I went in and I talked to John, who's our producer level writer. And I was like, this has happened. I'm pretty sure she's not getting fired, but I'm like, I don't think I'm the one to be handling this, right? And John was like, yes, I will talk to Matt. And then Matt was like, oh no, she's not getting fired. I should have put a note on her script being like, no, you the last episode you're gonna decide to stay or whatever. And he's like, I didn't do that. So obviously she was panicking. But it was kind of a thing of like her co-star, who was also, somebody I was friendly with, and her makeup artist were like, yeah, please find out from Matt if she's going to be
because
staying.
That would affect her emotionally.
Yeah, she's going to just be like worried about this all day. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it right now. So when she went off to do her scene, I went off to fix that. And by the time she came back from her scene and looked at her phone, she came up to me later and she was like, oh, it's fine. No, Matt texted me. I'm like, yeah, that's my job. Like, that's my job to find out for you. But it's such a nuanced situation, right? Because at this point, you're just like, I'm a staff writer. I'm not supposed to handle this situation, but then you have to somehow figure out how to handle it.
It's great you did.
Yeah, and that was in, when Julie Plex TV Academy talked about, if you're a staff writer and an actor comes up to you in an issue, find someone else to fix that issue. And I remembered that when this happened to me.
I'm curious about, you went from being a staff writer on The Equalizer, and then you were also a staff writer on True Lies. Will you talk a little bit more about having to do that twice and why that happens?
Yeah. The Equalizer, to be fair, in season 1 was only 10 episodes. And that was part of the reason why they asked me to repeat on True Lies, because 10 episodes, you're a staff writer for 10 episodes. And so they were like, well, it's a different studio. They use that excuse as well. And, this is going to be 13 episodes. So 10 and 13, you get your 23, and that's back in the day, you had to do 22 episodes as a staff writer. That's where their logic was. Yeah. At the time when I was taking that job, I was just like, whatever, I'm taking that job. Like, I wanted that job. To be really honest, if I was asked now to repeat staff writer a third time, I would say no. And, you have to think about the power of saying no. And, you have to know your worth and all of that. But at the time, I was like, I think it's fair that they asked me to repeat staff writer, because the other thing is, The Equalizer was all Zoom. I didn't get to go to set. I didn't even get to write an episode on The Equalizer. So it was sort of like, I wasn't prepared to be a story editor at that time. I needed True Lies. I needed write an episode, go to set, go to post. I needed all that experience as a staff writer. So,
and that's highly unusual too, that you were given the opportunity to write on True Lies as a staff writer, because not a lot of showrunners will necessarily do that, right? I got that opportunity.
Showrunner sounds amazing.
Yeah, I had a
guy.
great
I'm like, I want to find you, man.
That allowed me to
He's
do
doing
that.
Baywatch now.
Is he doing
Fox.
Baywatch? Yes. Okay, I was curious, like, where is he? Where's this
What
Matt
is he
Nix?
doing?
Matt Nix, right?
Matt Nix, yeah.
I got his name.
But that can be rare, right? That sometimes showrunners will just give upper level writers episodes.
That's new, because back when TV was TV and we were all watching it on the big 4 networks, big 5 at the time, yes, staff writers were getting assigned episodes. You were usually given an episode, half an episode with an upper level, and then maybe you were given your own episode down the line. But once streamers took over, I think it became more rare. And I think it was like, oh, you're just going to be in the room pitching ideas. But that's not That's not TV.
Mhm.
Like
Because
a
it's
lot
such
of
fewer episodes.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
yeah.
You know, when you had
Most
22
people-
episodes, it was
Yep.
easier to give them out,
Mhm.
probably.
Most people I know who've staffed on broadcast shows have gotten an episode. Like what
Mhm.
happened to me on The Equalizer was an anomaly, actually, because everybody who was in my CBS writing class, like my cohort, they all got episodes as staff writers on their first show. So it's sort of like I actually have the opinion that if you're a showrunner and you're not giving your staff writer an episode, what exactly are you doing? Like, you're not helping them. Why are they there?
Mhm.
Why have you hired them, right? You've hired them, yes, to be a voice in your room, but you've also hired them to contribute and to put words on the page, and you've hired them partially to train them. Like, you've seen something in them that you believe in, and you're like, let's train up this writer. Let's like mentor them so that when they go on to be story editor, or if they go on to another show, they're prepared to actually go and do that. So to me, I'm just like, showrunners aren't giving staff writers episodes. What are you doing? Why are you hiring them? And maybe the problem is now they're not hiring them. So it's
And
terrible.
you're right about the streaming part of it, right? It's I'm obsessed with Love Story right now. The John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette story. And, that's an example of 6 episodes out of 10 written by the creator, showrunner, Taylor Sheridan.
Mhm.
A lot of these
Mike White,
auteurs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mike White does it
mhm.
too.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's the new model that is kind of upending things as well, along with the shrinking of the industry. I think those two things are really wreaking a lot of havoc and, causing a lot of writers that are starting out to then not be able to come back to a show or continue to work in this industry.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are trying to pivot, right? And
Mhm.
there's that twist in their
Here
career.
we are.
Yeah, it brings us to this.
Pivoting.
So, speaking of pivoting, from True Lies up to now, what have you been up to recently?
Yeah, so since True Lies, again, I've had my hands in a lot of different pies because I'm trying a lot of different things in this downtime in our industry. But I have 2 projects in development that are TV movies right now. That is a very slow development process with a studio. And I've also been doing podcasts. So I wrote a scripted podcast series, and then I produced one, and both did really well. So one was a medical procedural called The Mind Doctor, and it's basically The Pit, but for your ears. It's all scripted medical drama. And the other one is about a murder plot that takes place during the Vietnam War. So it's the backdrops of the Vietnam War, and then there's a murder plot within these group of soldiers based on a true story. And so those podcasts did really, really well. They went to number 1 and number 2 on the Apple Fiction charts, which is crazy.
Congrats. It's
Yeah.
huge.
So I did those with a company called Voyage Media, and then still doing scripted podcasts right now. And then just waiting on those development projects and working on features, 4 different features, which I, have talked to all of my exec and producer friends about, and they're all very encouraging and have said that when you're done, we will help you send this out. So that's really my strategy is, going back to that community and being like, now I have all these new things. Let's go. Let's work on that.
Is there a project you're particularly excited about that you can share?
Well,
what it is?
there's also, I'm also shooting 2 proof of concepts for
Oh,
one for a
that's
pilot, one for a
great.
feature, and the one for the pilot already has some funding down. So I'm basically like trying to gather some more funding to shoot those. One of them is going to shoot in LA, one is going to shoot in New York. And to me, those are important because I'm finding that people are not reading scripts anymore, but if you send them a 5-minute of some video, they will watch it. And so to me, I'm like, here's a way to get your projects read, right? Make this proof of concept, be like, this is the short version of the feature, or this is the short version of the pilot. And then they're going to be like, oh, we're kind of into this. Like, let's read the script. And so that is something that I'm working on as well. And so that's what I'm excited about.
Minoti, I
That's
independently came to that same conclusion because I think I've talked about how I recently directed and wrote this short film, and I'll send it to folks I want to stay in touch with, and I'll be like, I know you probably don't want to read a 60-page pilot of mine or a feature, but here's a 4-minute short film. Check out what I've been up to. And they're more likely to be like, oh yeah, 4 minutes. I can take time to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a great film. I saw it. It's fantastic. So good.
Thanks, dear. Given the state of the world right now, the political climate, the state of our industry, how are you meeting this moment?
I am just trying to do what I can control. I think that's really what we can all do, right? We can't control what happens in the world, but we can control what we do. And same thing with the industry. We can't control what showrunners are going to do, what studios are going to do. We can only control what we can do. So the way I do it is by writing and by really keeping touch with my community, by doing stuff like this, which is talking to other people and, just really trying to enrich my life in a way that I still have control over. Because beyond that, we really can't do anything about anything else. So that's how I look at it. What I can control is what I can control. And the rest is just something that is happening that we really can't do anything about. So instead of worrying about it constantly, I think it's better to just focus on, what you can control.
As someone who's super productive, I am so curious how you stay on task and how you structure your day to get so much done. Are there any tips for the audience?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is don't procrastinate. I know it sounds like really obviously, but no, people really have good intentions of getting things done and then just don't feel like doing it and don't do it. I'd never give myself that luxury. So, if I have on my Google Calendar scheduled, you need to write pages 34 to 50 today, it has to get done. And so it's, like today I'm supposed to do that. And it's like, after this, am I going to go home and just watch TV? No, I'm going to do those pages. And you really have to be on yourself of here's what you had scheduled after work to write. You have to do it. Here's what you had scheduled. You have to go to this event. It's so easy for us to be like, well, I don't feel like it. It's okay to do that maybe once, but other than that, you really have to be on yourself to do it, whether you feel like it or not. It's kind of like working out, right? No one feels like working out, but when you have to do it, and you have to do it. And I think writing is a mental workout. You have to do it, so you have to do it.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where you rather just get those 15 pages done, even if you're not super happy with them, but you've done it.
Exactly, because you can always go back and rewrite those pages. They don't have to be perfect 15 pages, but you have to get it done. Once you get to the last page of your draft, you can go back and rewrite. I schedule my rewriting as well. Mm. And it's like, schedule this, and you're going to do a dialogue pass. Now you're going to do a character pass. Now you're going to do, scene description pass, whatever it is, a tone pass. You have to do all of those, and you're scheduling it in. And, so you sort of have to just keep doing it until your draft is perfect. But yeah, finishing is the number one priority.
And do you schedule it a week out? That's how you structure your calendar?
I schedule it months out, to be honest. I have 2 of my scripts scheduled out till the end of March. So wow. I know end of March, I will have 2, a solid draft of this script and a solid draft of that script. And then it's going to go out for notes. And then once notes come back, I will schedule how to rewrite all the notes as well. So everything gets done.
That is highly organized.
You're on it.
I am so impressed.
We'd love to know what's something you're curious about right now. It can be intellectually, it can be creatively, it can be, as you said, in the world. Is there anything? Someone's answer in the last interview we just edited, she was super interested in the new vertical dramas. And so she talked about that for a while.
Okay.
But what have other people
for me recently, Eric Dane passed away. And so I did a deep dive on ALS.
Did you?
And I actually am going to have a character that has ALS, and the pilot that I'm working on right now.
Wow.
And I was crying my eyes out.
It's horrifying.
Oh, wow.
Last night because Netflix put up this video, his last words to his daughters.
Are you serious?
It was heart-wrenching. It was like a punch to the heart. But he talks about how life is so precious and so short.
I saw that.
You just have to live your life fully and stop living in the past, stop worrying about the future. It was so beautiful and poetic. So that's an example of something, it's like something that has captivated you intellectually, emotionally.
Are you getting
art-wise?
No. Are you going to be the one that cries this time? No. I haven't cried in a while. I used to cry every single interview. I haven't in the last 3 hours.
I shed all of my tears
Oh, my goodness.
already.
I know. I guess what I'm curious about is where I'm at I'm 38, right? I'm not married, I don't have kids, and I couldn't be happier. And I'm curious, like, if this is the new norm moving forward for women, because, you know, in our parents' generation, and even before that, it was sort of just like what you did, right? You got married, you had kids, you didn't have a choice. And now we have the choice to not do that if we don't want to, and to choose better partners and all of that. And there's so much content around this, and I'm seeing so many people making that choice that I just wonder, is this the new norm? Is this the new norm? And, you know, how is the rest of the world going to meet that moment? Because we've decided what we want to do. We want to have careers. We want to choose really great partners. We, you know, want to have the life that we think we deserve. We don't want to drop everything we're doing and, you know, cater to someone else our whole lives. How is the world going to meet that moment? Because women have decided where they want to go, right? And so now society needs to decide, what do we do now, right? How do we go from here, and how do you evolve and change from here? And I'm excited to see what that looks like.
I am also so curious about this moment. And so I love that you brought that up, because same, I know so many women making the same choice. I am also unmarried and child. I mean, I've been with my partner for a very long time, but we've chosen not to actually get married. And so many of my friends are making many of my friends are making the choice to just remain single. Female friends. And so I am also, this is something we could have a whole other podcast on this, because I have so many thoughts. Well, the 4B movement in Korea.
That's what I was going to ask
the
about.
The 4B movement of, like, you know, they're not dating, they're not having sex, they're not getting married, they're not having kids. And this is I went on a deep dive. I don't know if it was in the Atlantic, it was in something, but they are studying now the effects, because they're already seeing the effects of what is happening. And there's a little bit of a, like, I don't want to say societal collapse. That's not what's happening, but it is. There are systems fracturing and structures getting shifted and shaken, and so it's because I don't want to label that as societal collapse, because that's not how I see it at all. Women being able to decide what they want to do and make different choices. So that's not what I want to say about it. But if you start looking at it, there are things happening. There are. I also don't want to say consequences, but there's cause and effect, and we are already seeing the effects.
And demographic shrinkage, right? I mean, the fact remains that if you don't have children, obviously the population is going to decrease, right? So then, how are we going to address that, right? To your point, maybe the issue is not women having higher standards, but maybe men need to rise up and meet those standards.
100%. I mean, because ultimately, if you look at women who have good partners, they are good men. It's like they do exist, but the ratio is very off, right? So it's like, how does that ratio come up? And honestly, maybe part of it is also, we don't need to have a population of 8 billion. We've existed with a population of 6 billion, not like 25 years ago we had 6 billion people. What are we doing why do we need 10 billion, right, in the next 20 years? And so I think there's those questions too. It's like, we're already putting enough pressure on Earth's resources. So maybe like a declining population isn't as bad as we think. That's just me.
I love that we got into that.
Well, there's so many options. Like, my brain is just going crazy. Like, I know women are moving in together if they're divorced or something. You know, heterosexual women are moving in together and raising their kids in a home they've bought together. Like, there's just so many different options that people are coming up with of how to move forward in a different type of nuclear family.
And I think that the cultural shift that you're talking about is this idea that your life can be complete and just as fulfilling whether you have a life partner or not.
Yes.
As a single person, there's no longer this stigma that you're putting on it yourself. Even if society is still doing that a little bit, you're like, who cares what society thinks?
Exactly.
I'm happy this way. Let me be myself. Yeah, I think that's very empowering, and I'm glad that you're voicing it.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up. My partner recently just looked at me and he said, "Are we becoming obsolete about men?" And I was like, "Darling, I love you." I was like, "I don't think so."
You didn't answer the question. You were like, "Yeah, I love you."
But that he would think that way. That he could also like see what's happening and be like, "What's going on here?"
Well, with sperm donations now, you can still have a child without a partner.
This is going everywhere.
So do you have any takeaways for the audience? Anything you want to leave us with?
I think it's know what you want to do and fight for it. I think that's like my whole life philosophy. If you want something, you got to fight for it. Don't let anyone tell you it's not going to happen for you. Do the work and fight for it. And yeah, that's what I want to leave everybody with.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on your jungle set. I feel like, I'm doing some kind of promotion for the Jungle movie. And
thank you for coming to our jungle set.
Yeah, we have to address this.
We're going with Between Two Ferns. We're copying Zach Galifianakis. No, we're in a transitional period with our set.
Our last set got destroyed. It's a long story, but we have this new one.
I'm honored to be the first guest in your new set.
And our producer John getting a little dirty here with some more jungle up in the camera was like spot on. Thank you, sir. Love that.
And where can we find you? What social handles? How can people follow you?
I am at Minoti Vaishnav on Instagram, and that's the best place to find me.
For everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us as well. Please hit like, subscribe on whatever platform you're on. It really helps the channel grow. And we will see you next time.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Bye.